am compelled by Schlock.
Welcome, Schlock Brains. I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson, and joining me is Chris Anonymous, and we are here to talk to you about the marvelous movie Battlefield Earth, a saga of the year 3000. Chris, you are a very prolific reader, I'm told. Have you ever read the novel or any L. Ron Hubbard?
I am a prolific reader, and I do love science fiction. I have not read any L. Ron Hubbard. Not that I'm opposed to it in any way. I'm not opposed to reading some of his work. I just haven't ever done it.
Well, so I didn't realize this. Battlefield Earth, he wrote in 1982. He died not too long after, 1989 or something like that. But essentially, after he wrote it, he immediately wanted it to be turned into a movie. And John Travolta, he was in Scientology then, and he wanted to make this dude's dream come true. So he was pushing for it for a very long time. I don't know if you've ever seen the cover of the book. It looks very like Conan or like Princess of Mars, Edgar Rice Burroughs. Like it looks completely different from how this movie looks. So I would be interested in reading it. This movie, it came out in 2000. So the movie takes place 1,000 years after the release of this movie. It costs $73 million to make, and it only brought in over $29 million, making it a box office flop. But John Travolta swears that it has made at least $100 million through DVD sales and pay-per-view and things like that. So
more of a cult classic than American Gothic.
And that's what he said. Travolta the Prophet, he said that this movie, while it may have been a critical and commercial failure, it would gain an audience. It would find success as a cult classic.
Yeah, I mean, it just won't die. AKA, it's staying alive.
Ooh, So this is one of the most hated movies ever made. And Chris, I didn't realize that you had not seen it.
I had not. Yeah.
I've talked about it a lot, and I swear that we've had full-blown conversations about this movie, and you hadn't seen it until this Saturday, correct?
That is correct.
So this is a perfect movie for our show where we talk about schlocky movies. We talk about what we like and what we didn't like, and when we talk about what makes them schlocky. Yeah. As I said, it's one of the most hated movies ever made. At the time, it won the most Razzies out of any other movie prior. If you're not aware, the Razzies, those are the awards that they give you at the Raspberry Awards. So Raspberry, like going, right? The Raspberry Awards.
The old Bronx cheer.
Yeah. Prior to this, they hadn't given anyone as many, and I think it won like a sort of a lifetime achievement type award, like worst movie of the 2000s of like 2000.
I mean, how do you say that when it came out in the 2000s? Like you'd have to wait till 2010 to proclaim that.
I think maybe it won it in 2009, or maybe they were just like, nope, nothing's gonna be worse than this. So I'm a fan of this movie. I enjoy it.
I could tell by the way that you on our last episode when you named the movie where you were going to watch. Yeah, you are. Do you have any other factoids, or do we want to get a little web of schlock and then just dig into it? Because I think you have a lot to say about this movie, and I don't have not a lot to say about this movie. So
I have a little bit more to say about it, but I'm going to save it for later as we dive a little bit deeper into John Travolta on this. So if you're not aware, like I said, we do likes, dislikes, and schlock. We spoil everything, so be warned. But before we get into all of that, we do the web of schlock because we want to know who these people are and how they're connected. And Chris, I need you to tell me, who's Barry Pepper?
Oh man. Barry Pepper is an awesome actor. You've seen him in a lot of stuff. He has one of those faces that for some reason you just kind of like, okay, what have I seen him in? What have I seen him in? And then you start naming stuff and you're like, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I think people probably first started noticing him with Saving Private Ryan. Then he was in Enemy of the State, Green Mile. He had a run in the late 90s, early 2000s. We Were Soldiers. So what I remembered him from and what made me love him as an actor, I think he's just a phenomenal actor, is Spike Lee's 25th Hour, which is one of the best Spike Lee joints made. It's just a great movie. Stars Edward Norton if you haven't seen it. But Barry Pepper's in that. Awesome in that.
I've seen everything up until this one you just mentioned.
Flag of Our Fathers, 7 Pounds. Yeah, True Grit, the remake.
The John Wayne one? Oh.
Yeah. Not the John Wayne one, the remake. Lone Ranger, also the remake. So I don't want you to think that he's a time traveler because he's got Barry Pepper has the face of a time traveler. I don't think he is one. He was in the horror movie Crawl. I never got to see that. I wanted to. I think that was the alligator one where it was like in a flooded area. And,
I haven't seen it, but they have to crawl through some ruins or something. And there's an alligator chasing or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So he's just a cool dude. Another cool dude in this movie, Forrest Whitaker. Love me some Forrest Whitaker. He's also just pops up in all these really cool projects. And then, we were talking a little bit about the guy who plays Mickey, Christian Tessier, probably butchering his name. Tons of roles. Just, the waiter in this and the cop in this one and the assistant in this one.
So just kind of a professional background
character actor. Yeah, he's one of those ones that you're like, I've seen him. What have I seen him in? And they're like, yep. When that happens, I'll scroll through. I'll scroll through the IMDb and I'm like, nope. I'm like, yep. He was extra number 2 on the bike. That's him. That's what I remember him from. You're like, why did your mind choose that?
Man, I liked him in this. I mean, he's a great guy. He did a great Tim Allen impression. All the time. I'm sure he thought this would be his breakout role. He'd stop being waiter number 2, and he would be the Samwise Gamgee of the Battlefield Earth saga.
Right. No, I loved him in this. He was one of my favorite characters. And then, of course, John Travolta, who we just talked about last week. We can talk about him more now, or we can talk about him later. I can get into the director and writer real quick.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
So we have Roger Christian is the director. A lot of made-for-TV movies, some other movies I haven't seen, all over the board. But he did. He directed Mastermind. Do you remember that from the?
Is that with Patrick Stewart?
Yeah. Yep. Like the kids. Yep.
It's one of those. They're just kids movies.
Yep. That's that. The '90s had a lot of those. Yeah. But he also worked on. He was. He goes back with George Lucas. So he was a second unit director on Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. And evidently George Lucas had actually recommended him to Travolta for this project. Now,
and he made some great decisions in this movie.
I don't know if he made great decisions, but he made decisions that he stood by, and that's impressive for a director. I'll commend you for that. Now, the writer, well, there's a couple writers, but the one that has credits has a lot of TV, not a lot, some TV, some movies I've never heard of. And then he has screenplay and story credit along with Mel Brooks for Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh man, it's one of my favorite movies.
Right? I love him. Yeah. So I mean, JD.
I can see the resemblance.
Yeah, JD Shapiro. Yeah, I can see the resemblance from Robin Hood Men in Tights, and Battlefield Earth is in some ways just a remake of Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
some similar stories.
Yeah, the same story goes for like the editor. He worked on Masterminds. I believe he was an assistant editor on some of the Star Wars. So they were all working in the industry and had sci-fi connections. So, but let's segue from that into the good, the bad, and the schlock, my friend.
Yeah, so I'll start with the good just because it's basically an extension of Web of Schlock. You mentioned him, Forrest Whitaker. I love him in anything. Like, I think he's a great actor, and I always really enjoy watching him. But also John Travolta. Now, I think a lot of people didn't like his performance. I thought his performance was great, not because it was like deep and nuanced or anything like that, but it was steady and it was interesting, right? Like he has this weird way of talking, this no, but it's my plan, like, ultra Saturday morning villain. Yep. And he doesn't break it like through the whole thing. Like it doesn't come in and out. Like I think he just pulled off that character really well. And as you can tell, this is like a John Travolta passion project. As I said, he wanted to do it because he was buddied up with L. Ron Hubbard at the time. Originally, he wanted to play Johnny Goodboy, the lead, back in the 80s, but it took too long to get the movie made, so he switched it around to being the bad guy, which it's really his movie, I think, like as far as screen time goes and the best lines. And I mean, it's really a villain's movie, which I think is kind of interesting. You don't really see that a lot. He stated that this movie would be like Pulp Fiction in the year 3000, because he had come off of Pulp Fiction not too long ago. And you have to remember that, like, at this point in time, there weren't a lot of movies like this. I don't feel like, because he also said, and thinking like, what else would he really compare it to? He said, part of the hype, he said, it's better than Star Wars, and meeting the original Star Wars.
Oh man, what a thing to say.
Like, that's quite the called shot. But I will say, I do think it's better than at least the last 3 Star Wars movies. So there's that. But again, like, what else would he really have compared it to at this point in time? But so yeah, the actors, love them. Barry Pepper, mentioned him. And my other big good for it is that I just think that it's like an uplifting sci-fi action movie. I love it's not a complicated storyline, but I love that it's about people coming together to like overcome their oppressors, and it's set with like laser pew pew machines and explosions and overcoming an alien race. Like, for me, the part where he goes into it's the Denver Library, I think, or the Library of Congress, and he's like reading the Constitution, and that like gives him it like solidifies his resolve to not only escape but to revolt. And like this idea that he read something that talks about inalienable human rights endowed by a creator, that people are treated
not inhumable equally, alien rights.
Inhumable alien rights. That's the prostitution. So I think that's just like a good uplifting story. And so when I was a young man and I watched this, like it got me in the feels. There's people making sacrifices in it in order to be free and to liberate their people. And so all of the janky stuff aside, like all of the leaps in logic and whatnot aside, to me, that's why I have to like this movie. The good guys win in the end, and they just totally screw over the bad guys at the end. Like, I love that. But that does take me into my bad. Like I said, the leaps in logic, there are just tons of unexplained things. And this movie, it's only about half of the book. So the book is huge. And I think that they just had to cut out so much stuff to fit it into like a 2-hour time frame, because this was back before they realized that you could stretch a book into several movies. This is in the before time. But so I have a shot that I call, like, where did these guys come from? It's the part where John Travolta takes them out and he starts shooting cows. And then, like, out of nowhere, these like rebels come and tackle him down. And they're just like in the movie now. Like, and they're all aligned. They, I guess, know each other. I don't know where they came from, but you just have to accept that they're there. I didn't think that was great. And also that's a big leap in logic. Another main leap in logic that I had a problem with, as I said earlier, the movie got me in the feels, the ultimate sacrifice, these people sacrificing their lives so that the rebellion can like come to fruition. And there's like the big scene where they're trying to break the dome so that the Cyclos like can't breathe and the humans have the advantage. And so Mickey, I believe his name is on the ship, and he's trying to blow it up, but it only sort of cracks. And it doesn't shatter the whole thing. And it's a big countdown, and the humans are dying. They're getting their butts kicked, and he's got to figure out a way to break the dome. So he crashes the ship into it, and then he's hanging there. It still hasn't cracked. And then he like pulls out a rocket launcher and shoots the fuel to make it explode and crack the whole thing. And the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, he sacrificed himself. This last time that I watched it, I was like, wait, what? You had a rocket launcher this whole time and you didn't just hover and shoot and use it? So that kind of ruined that ultimate sacrifice for me. So those, I'm not going to do any more bad on this because I feel like it has had decades of bad thrown about on it. So I will pass the ball to you, Chris.
Okay.
What do you got?
Well, I'd never seen this movie before, for the reason that I didn't think I needed to bother to see it because it was rated one of the worst movies of all time. And, you know, even if I live to 120, I'll still never be able to see all the movies I want to see. So
little did you know you'd be doing a show where you have to watch all the bad movies.
Right. So, yeah. And then you were so excited last episode, and I'm like, man, this is gonna be Warriors of Virtue all over. I'm just gonna dump on this movie that he loves. And I'm here to tell you that I'm not gonna do that. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it.
Retrospective.
Yeah, I did not love it, but I didn't hate it. There's lots in it I liked.
I'm not here to say it's the best movie ever made. I'm here to say it's fine. This movie is perfectly fine.
It's a C- for me, and that's not bad because there's lots of movies that are much worse.
C's get degrees.
Yeah. So I think it's a good concept. I think it's a solid concept for a space epic. I think it's over the top and fun. It's very stylized. I love Travolta's performance. I love the actors in it. I love the comic irony. And I'm going to come back to that in Schlock because there's something you touched on it with the with people rallying together and fighting for freedom, right? And then just the uplifting nature of that. And I want to touch on that because there's something there. So I'm just going to go to my bad and then we'll get into it. Some of the special effects are awful. You know, if this was your passion project, take a pay cut and put that money towards the special effects.
He did take a pay cut.
Take a bigger one.
Normally 20 million.
Yeah.
And then it went to 10 million. And then I guess he donated 5 million to it. But you'd think maybe even pro bono. How much time of his life did this take?
Yeah, I just the special effects, the makeup I thought was good, and some of the effects were fine, but some of them were just really bad. And I don't think it's necessarily a product of Battlefield Earth. There were a lot of movies around this era that were still exploring new kind of like shots,
CGI, and
and it just, I mean, there's really no excuse for a movie in 2000 because of Jurassic Park, but I know everyone doesn't have that budget and the access to those people.
Yeah.
So there were lots of movies around this time that had really subpar special effects. It's not set up well. I mean, my biggest problem is Act 1. And I think you could have solved it. And I think you could have got this movie to a B for me, a solid B if you would fix Act 1. So here's a good and bad, and I'll end it here. So much style, but some of it's inconsistent. And there are more Dutch angles in this movie than The Third Man, which is an old movie that has a ton of Dutch angles. I love Dutch angles. I love them.
There's more Dutch angles in this movie than Holland.
Yeah, there's a lot of Dutch angles. Every other shot is a flipping Dutch angle.
I felt like I was on a tilt-a-whirl, man.
Right. The director has been on record saying that he chose to do all these Dutch angles to make it feel more like a comic book. And I can see that. It's also very jokey. I didn't understand how to watch this movie in the first half hour. You know how we talk about like movies teach you how to watch the movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought this was going to be a space epic that was more close to Star Trek than Star Wars. And then I hear Travolta saying that it's, better than Star Wars. I don't see a real correlation to Star Trek or Star Wars as its forefather. They're obviously they all share things that are shared in any sci-fi movie. I think it owes most of its debt to Flash Gordon.
Oh, okay.
And you talked about like the cover of the book and how it's got that kind of Prisoner of Mars, Princess of Mars. It's that schlocky space opera that's super over the top,
very pulpy,
very pulpy. And once I realized that with Travolta's performance, it made me watch the movie in a completely different light, and I started enjoying it a lot more when I'm like, oh, this is not a serious movie with bad acting and cheesy lines. This is a cheesy movie with great actors and silly lines.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This, if you watch it like you would watch Flash Gordon, you're going to have a much better time. We talked about with Carrie, you see a lot of style, and sometimes that style goes a little overboard.
Yeah.
That's what happened here.
Yeah.
I think this guy is probably a pretty good director. He did too many Dutch angles and too many other things and some weird color choices and that weird sweep here. But it felt very space opera, very pulpy. And once I figured that out, I really liked it. So I put that in good and bad.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Well, let's go right on into the schlock then, because that's kind of where the good and bad meet. A big question I have for you is, since you're kind of looking at this with fresh eyes, why do you think people hated it so much? Like, I mean, it's not an amazing movie, but does it like deserve like the absolute vitriol it's received?
Well, I think with especially with big movies, you got to grab them right away. They did not. The special effects are par to subpar. The acting is over the top acting. albeit on purpose, but still that's not everyone's cup of tea, right? And then you have all the drama behind its production and all that. And so, I think it was just a perfect storm of like jumping on a bandwagon to hate something. I never was like, Battlefield is the worst movie ever because I never saw it. But I bet you lots of people were like, Battlefield Earth's the worst movie ever. And they were like me and had never seen it or saw it once. And you got to be in a certain mood to watch these kinds of movies too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I know, in my cultural memory, this is around the time where Scientology was in the news a lot because Tom Cruise was really coming out as an advocate. He had been part of the Church of Scientology for quite a while, but it was really coming out, I think, at this time that like a lot of celebrities and like really big celebrities are part of like essentially this cult. And so I think that there was just like a lot in the air at the time about, what's this movie really about and what are these guys trying to do? And even with the whole script writing. So was his name JD Shapiro?
Yeah.
He wrote the script and apparently it went to like some sort of Scientology group where they had to like go through and sort of rewrite it and do some tweaks in it here and there. And it had to pass through some hands in order for it to get approved. And so there's, like you said, the behind the scenes drama, all this stuff going on. So it makes it sound really fishy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not necessarily fishy. You look at something like Passion of the Christ. I guarantee you they test screen that in front of a bunch of different Christian audiences to make sure that they weren't offending anyone who really cared about this story. And, some say Scientology is a cult. Some say it's a religion. Some say it's this other thing. I'm not here to talk about any of that, but it is important to a large group of people. And their founder wrote this book. So it would make sense that you would put it in front of them to say, hey, did we get this right? We don't want to offend anyone. I know this isn't,
and that's a great observation.
Canon. It's a fictional story that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, and L. Ron Hubbard, founded Scientology. I know that it's not their text, but it's part of that culture. And so you just want to be sensitive to everyone's cultures and beliefs. So it makes sense that you would, and I see the spin. I could see how, some secret thing and they had to add their stuff. I'm like, maybe, but I'm thinking it's more just like, hey, how does this offend you? Did we get it right?
Well, and some similar things came out with M. Night Shyamalan's After Earth as well. Just trying to put in trying to pick apart, what type of esoteric stuff is in it. And you also get that for movies like Passion of the Christ. It's just maybe more blatant.
You get that. Yeah, you get that with any movie. Like you get that with Star Wars.
They denied that Battlefield Earth had anything to do with Scientology, whereas Passion of the Christ, they're not like, no, this isn't a movie about Christianity.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a perfect comparison, but
it is a good comparison. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think any movie you can read into it, and any movie worth anything does have a theme and does say something about humanity and morality and life. I mean, whether you meant to say it or not. We had talked about this in when we reviewed the horror movie Clown, on how I didn't like the message of hopelessness, and how I think a lot of horror movies, you need the hope, even if the hope's dashed at the end, even if the good guy dies at the end, as long as there was hope that he might have lived, that's a different message than these nihilistic things about just hopelessness, right? And so even the schlockiest movies have something of substance to say, and I didn't find anything blatantly preachy in this movie or culty or of any religion or anything. The only message I got out of this was the power of the human spirit and the power of coming together and working together and freedom. And I know I'm rambling here, so I'll finish it up. But I wanted to get back to Travolta's character. And
I think we're going to go a little bit late on this one. You get a special extra episode here.
Yeah, well, I'll go all night. I'm energizing, buddy. The one word is hubris. The whole movie revolved around hubris, and I loved it. I thought, what a great thing to have these superior aliens come in, and we get the irony, the comic irony, the dramatic irony, the thick irony of underestimating humans.
Yeah.
And what an uplifting message that is of like, yeah, we might be the underdogs, but don't count us out. And then you start seeing it fall into place, like Travolta's great line of course, rats are their favorite food. Yeah. Like that's when I started to really like the movie.
So we have a picture of that because I was going to bring that up as well. The whole rat brain thing. He keeps calling him rat brain. Like when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is like a long way to go just to set up a joke, right?
Right.
These people they must love rats because that's the first thing they find to eat once they're let go. But really, it gets into a larger theme, like you said, underestimating humans and having the hubris, but also there's the continual theme of leverage, right? That's said, I don't know, like 100 times in the movie, humans getting leverage over Cylons, underlings getting leverage over their superiors getting leverage over the company, right?
Yeah.
And
backstabbing,
so it's
bribes.
It's not just like a one-off joke. It's something that shows
it's baked into the
theme
story
of the movie.
Yeah, totally. And that's why John Travolta's character, he's such a delicious baddie that you love watching him, but you want to see him get his comeuppance, but you don't want to see him die. He's almost like it's almost like you have a hero, and then the hero, Barry Pepper, and then he has a villain, which is Travolta, but then Travolta is an anti-hero to the other the Cylons.
Cyclos.
Yeah.
Cylons, that's Battlestar.
So you want Barry Pepper to escape and to beat all the silos and to win. And we're totally with him. But you also want Travolta to usurp and to get off the planet and to scheme and to you want to see them both win their respective goals.
I don't know what the second half of the book is, but I would absolutely be in for a movie where they have to reluctantly team up to achieve whatever their new goal is.
Right. And then it's such a pulpy, cheesy movie, like the Man Animals Don't Fly. Like what
that whole discussion.
Yeah, what it was so many times when he's like, fine, I'll prove it to you. And it's really interesting to have a jokey bet with the aliens that results in a human dying. And it's cool to see that they just lost their partner and friend for no reason at all.
Right. It's that hubris. It's we feel we are so superior to you that we can play games with your lives. And
it's like two fifth graders. Like, if I rip this worm apart, are both of them gonna live?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and ironically, right toward the end of the film, humans do fly, and that's one of the reasons they're able to defeat them.
Yep.
And man, I just gotta say, I didn't plan on saying this. Halo is one of my favorite. It's a great video game, but I love the story, and it's because it shows humans' greatest strength, and we see this in this movie as well. Humans' greatest strength. It's not like our how big we are or how muscular we are, or not necessarily even how intelligent we are, but it's how innovative we are. It's how you can't get us down, and we will figure out a way to do something. And I love that story.
I love that. And there's there's this point in the movie that I'm like, man, that is so smart and clever. And like, it's super cheesy and over the top, but how are they getting the gold? They rob Fort Knox.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It is pure schlock brilliance of like, he learned about this place, right? And now he knows he can go there because they can't go because of the radiation. And it's just that inventiveness that you're talking about of like, man, how are they going to get all this stuff and get the gold and get this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that. And I love that. And that goes back. It's human inventiveness and innovation versus the aliens' hubris, which give them the power to be innovative. Because if we can bring up the picture, the knowledge machine.
Yes. The here's how we speed up the story machine.
Well, but you know what movie came out a year before this that did the exact same thing? That's one of the most loved movies of all time.
Yep.
The Matrix.
I know Kung Fu.
Right. I mean, what a great line. I mean, The Matrix did it better.
Yeah. Indeed.
But it's still, they didn't see The Matrix and put this in. This was already in production. You know what I mean? I'm sure this was in the book. I don't know that, but I'm sure it is. But I still love this. I love that idea of, let's make the humans smarter and give them all this knowledge and teach them our language and teach them math and teach them all this stuff. So, but we're still going to be smarter than them and we can still control him. I mean,
it's too dumb to use it against us.
Right. It's the hubris of the aliens that give the humans the edge they need. And it's the humans' indelible spirit and innovation that come around and cause them to succeed in a very fun climax that is probably a little rushed. Like, do I believe that they could teach all those people to fly fighter jets in 7 days? No, I don't. But this is a big schlocky movie. It's like in episode 9 when all the fighters appear and they have the horses riding on top of the spaceship. Do I believe that? No, but it's cool looking. It's like my favorite part of that movie.
Right.
You know, like any space opera is going to have over the top cheesy crap and make no logical sense. Even if you have it make logical sense, there's still going to be things that just won't work, right? Unless you're just like, you know what, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and so I think some people's big problems with this is like the technology in it, right? The flight simulator that works after 1,000 years, and the fuel that still works after 1,000 years, and
then that's a big problem. I just would have take 3,000 out and put like 21.
Well, here's the thing, though. If I'm sure it says in the book, I don't think it says in the movie at all. When did the cyclos come in? Like it's been long enough for a few generations to have passed. The humans still speak pretty good English. They've slightly devolved, but I mean, I don't know. You can look around the US and find that. But like, so what if it didn't happen, right? Like 1,000 years ago, it didn't happen in the year 2000. It happened in the year 2599, where they were able to invent like long-lasting batteries that can run things for hundreds of years.
Right. We're assuming
blah, blah, blah,
that all this, it says the year 3000, and we're assuming that it happened in the year we watched the movie.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, you can explain things away, I think, well enough to enjoy the movie. Like, so one thing I'll bring up, the different species, perhaps. So we noticed that John Travolta's face, right? Like it's a pretty normal looking human face, but then we get these guys, like
Klingon looking mothers.
Yeah, and then we also have his girlfriend, I guess. And
we got a picture
she's
of
like
her.
Bald.
Yep.
So, and apparently some of them have 6 fingers, some of them have 5 fingers. John Travolta's character goes back and forth between 5 and 6 fingers.
And according to the movie, some of them have other advantages.
They have extended tongues, but maybe the reason they have different numbers of fingers, maybe they like molt or something.
Yeah,
right?
maybe their face grows all Klingon-y and then falls off, and it's more like Travolta's face.
Forrest Whitaker, he gets his hand blown off. John Travolta gets his arm blown off, and neither one of them are like too upset about it
or really bleed.
Yeah. So what potentially do they like lose appendages and grow? And he has back
green eyes. What's up with that?
Yeah. What's up with that?
What? Yeah, so this movie's nope, green eye. I can't do it.
So, but my main point is that people have nitpicked this movie to death, right? Of things that like aren't possible or completely illogical or don't make sense. And I think that like, if you're willing to just enjoy the movie, a lot of this stuff you can just explain away.
I mean, if you were to pause on the shot of Tatooine when they're in the bar, when they're on, I mean, you can all those aliens, like, I mean, it's any space thing, like,
why does the dude's arm bleed when it's cut off with a lightsaber? Aren't they supposed to
right? I mean,
burn
like
the wound, cauterize the wound?
No one creates an alien that based on the idea of a logical species that could actually exist. They base it on something cool or strange, and then they retcon it if someone complains about something. Right.
Exactly.
And so, so if you're already hating on the movie, then you can nitpick it apart, which you can do with any movie that you decided to hate. If you want to see any movie get torn apart logically, just watch a pitch meeting, man.
Yeah. It's a great channel, by the way.
Oh, great. I love pitch meeting. But like, even movies I love, they're like, that doesn't make any sense. It's because it's a story.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not reality. It's fake. Right. Chris, do you have anything else? Because I think we better be wrapping up. We've gone over our time.
No, I have nothing else. I'd like to give you the final word because you love this movie, and then I'll tell you what we're watching next week.
My final word is piece of cake.
Okay, next week.
What are we watching next week? It's free on Tubi.
It's free on Tubi. The Wraith.
The Wraith.
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, if you're watching, make sure you like, comment, and or subscribe. It makes us feel good. We are starting to grow. We're finally starting to get some momentum. So please help us keep that momentum going up. I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. We've been compelled by Schlock, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Schlock.
Bye.
Schlockity schlock.
See you guys.
Schlock. Schlocky schlock schlock. Schlock. Schlock schlocky schlock. Schlock.